for the Department of...
Recording in progress.
There we go, recording in progress. I was just going to get to that and let you guys know that we are recording tonight's session. So if you do want to review it later, or if you know someone who couldn't make it, you can refer them to the recording. Okay, let me start over. Dr. Christina Roup. I am the Graduate Studies Chair for the Department of Speech and Hearing Science. I am an associate professor in the department and teach graduate students in the AUD program. I have taught in the undergrad program in the past, but don't currently teach during fall or spring semesters in the undergrad program. So a lot of you don't probably know me, but that is who I am, and I'm happy to be here tonight to talk to you about navigating the CIDCAS. Let's see if I can come up with the acronym. Communicative Sciences and Disorders Centralized Application System. That's what that long acronym stands for. So tonight is our first session to help prepare you for preparing your application. So tonight is about CIDCAS and the application process. I'm assuming you all can see my screen because I've shared it. You will see what our topics are for tonight. Some of these will go really quick, some might be a little bit longer. If you have questions, please feel free. There's a slide here where I get to sort of the end where I do pause for your questions, but if you have questions in the meantime, feel free to raise your hand, your Zoom hand, and just let me know and we can pause at any point in time. This is meant to be informal. This is for you because I know that the application process for graduate school can be stressful and maybe, you're diving into a little bit of the unknown, and that can be, that can cause some anxiety. So we're here to relieve some of that. Okay, so our topics for tonight, we're going to mention GRE scores, but nothing more than that. We'll talk about the review process, just so you guys get an idea of what the review process looks like once you've submitted your application. We'll talk about navigating the CIDCAS application portal. We'll talk about the OSU supplemental application, application fee waivers, fees and fee waivers, and then just some general advice to help you through this process. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a blue box, and this is just to let you know that tonight is just the first of some upcoming sessions that are designed to help you through this process. So tonight is about the CIDCAS system. A week from tonight, starting at 6:30, so a half hour earlier, you will have Dr. Bielefeld, who's the chair of the department. He's going to be talking to you about letters of recommendation. And then session 3 will be a week after that on a Tuesday, the 16th. That one will start at 7 like tonight. And that will be with Dr. Jan Weisenberger, who will be talking to you about writing your personal statements. Essentially, you're going to be responding to some essay prompts, at least for Ohio State. Some other, I think every university does that a little bit differently, but the personal statement is responding to essay prompts from the universities that you're applying to. And then if you want more information about specific programs, so the next 2 things on this slide are not about the applying, but they're about learning more about our graduate programs at Ohio State. So on Friday, October 10th, there are 2 student visits. There's an in-person prospective student visit for any of you who are interested in the MA-SLP program or the speech language pathology program. That will be at Scott Hall, which is right next door to Pressey Hall on West Campus from 3:30 to 5. That's in person. And then if you're interested in the Doctor of Audiology program, that will be a virtual session via Zoom. And that's also Friday, October 10th from 3:30 to 5. And you can find more information about that on our website under the Graduate tab. All right, so let's dive in. Okay, so in terms of preparing your application, do you need GRE scores to apply to our graduate programs? The answer is no. Currently, GRE scores are not required. Now, if you've taken the GRE or the Graduate Record Examination, I believe is what that stands for, if memory serves, If you've taken it for another institution or another university that still does require that or requires them again, and you have submitted them to SIDCAS, those will show up in your application when we view your application, but we do not use those scores to evaluate your application. So the short answer is no, you don't have to have GRE scores for OSU, but if they are there, we do not take them into account. So that is where we are with the GRE. Okay, just to give you a preview of what happens once you submit your application will be assigned to two faculty members, to a minimum of two faculty members to review your entire application. So who reviews your application? Faculty members in the Department of Speech and Hearing Science. So this is an internal departmental review. So students, those of you who are applying to the speech language pathology program will be reviewed, your application will be reviewed by at least two members of the MA-SLP faculty. And then those of you applying to the audiology program, it'll be the same thing. You'll get a minimum of two reviews by audiology faculty members. What are the reviewers looking for? We strive for a holistic evaluation or a review process where we look at multiple factors of your application. So that includes your cumulative GPA, your grade point average. It includes your letters of recommendation. It includes your personal statement. We look at writing. We look at how you answer your questions. And if we do treat that as a writing sample, we look at your transcripts. So we look at all your grades, not just your GPA. We look at kind of the courses that you've taken and across your entire 4 years as an undergraduate. So we take it all into account. We also take into account all the other information that you provide for us. So that supporting information, if you've been in the SIDCAS portal, there's buckets that you have to complete. One is your demographic information, your transcripts, your personal statement, and then there's the supporting information. And we'll talk more about that, but we take that all into consideration when we evaluate your applications. How are admissions decisions made? Well, your application will receive that minimum of two reviews, and your application will then be rated on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest score that you can get or the highest rating that you can get. And then we rank order our applicants based on that rating scale. So we estimate how many students we know what size class we want. So for audiology, we're always looking to fill anywhere from 10 to 12 spots. In the master's program, we're looking to fill anywhere from 28 to 32 spots. It kind of ebbs and flows. There's not a specific number we're looking for. Once we've rated all of our applicants, then we estimate how many students we think will accept our offer of admission, and we make offers of admission to that number to try and fill those seats. So 10 to 12 in the audiology program, 28 to 32 in the MA-SLP program. So that's where we start. And then, but because we know that not everybody we offer admission to will come to Ohio State, because we know that you're applying to many programs, and you need to find the program that best fits you. We hope it's Ohio State, but it could be another program, and that's okay too. So that is a kind of a simplified overview of the application review process. Every application that is submitted gets a thorough review. We don't leave anybody out. We don't triage. We review all applications. So you take the time and the effort and you pay the money to submit your application, it will be fairly reviewed. So you can be assured of that. Any questions so far? Okay. Okay, so when it comes to preparing your application, we are going to hit this button a couple of times. I'm going to reiterate this a couple of times, but the most important thing you can do is read the application instructions carefully. And that is our website, so the Speech and Hearing Science website, has very detailed instructions on how you go through the application process, and that we continually update those every year based on feedback we get from students. But Miss Sarah Wendell, who is our graduate studies coordinator, she has very detailed instructions on what you need to do to complete your application. So that's one place to start. The second thing you need to do is to really review the SIDCAS website. They have so much rich information there for you. And 9 times out of 10, any questions you have about the application process can be answered there by either the instructions on our website or the instructions on the SIDCAS website. So please do your homework and review those materials, because I think you'll find the more you go through that material, the more comfortable you're going to be with completing your application. So step one, please read the instructions. Okay. Deadlines. Deadlines are super important. We operate on deadlines, and we expect you to know those deadlines. So for SIDCAS, specifically for Ohio State, this is not going to be true for all programs, but for Ohio State, for both the speech language pathology and the audiology programs, our deadline for your SIDCAS application is December 15th by the end of the day. And that could be end of, like 11:59 p.m. I was gonna see what day December 15th is on, and let me see. I have a calendar right here. December 15th is a Monday, so you have a weekend to complete it. But you have all between now and then to complete it. Your application status, as you'll see in the gray box to the right, must state complete and or verified by December 15th. If it's not, then if it's incomplete or still says in progress, we are not able to review the application. So in the previous slide, I said that every application that's submitted and complete or verified will get reviewed. But if it says in progress or unverified, then we don't review it. So that's important for you to keep track of your SIDCAS application status. So that's your first deadline that you have to keep in mind, December 15th. Put a big red circle on your calendar. And then once your SIDCAS application has been completed and verified, SIDCAS will notify OSU. OSU graduate and professional admissions that will trigger them to send you an email with a link for your supplemental application. That is an internal OSU application that you have to complete, and that deadline is January 15th, 2026. So you have, 30 days in between when you submit your SIDCAS deadline and when you have to complete the OSU supplemental application. And you'll hear me say SUP app because we just shorten it for brevity's sake. If you do not get an email from graduate and professional admissions, soon after, you may need to make sure that soon after you think your SIDCAS application is complete, you double check that your SIDCAS application is complete. If it is and you still haven't gotten that email, let us know so we can get that SUP app to you, or that link to complete that supplemental application. Regarding SIDCAS applications that complete and verified, I can't stress that enough. As you have so much time between now and then, but you need to pay attention to your application status, especially when you think it's complete. Make sure that SIDCAS thinks it's complete as well, because we typically do not send notifications to students if you have missing information. We rely on you to complete your application. Sometimes Miss Wendell will send, like around December 10th or 12th, like hey, the 15th is rolling around and we see your application is still not complete or verified. So some of you may start an application to OSU and then think, you know what, I'm not going to apply. And that's totally fine. That happens every year. But the message I'm trying to get across here is that please pay attention to that status. It's your responsibility to complete that application. I have in here somewhere, we get close to 400 applications between the two programs, audiology and speech pathology. And so notifying individuals about their application status is just not in the cards. That's too big of that's too much for us to keep track of as well as all the other things that we're keeping track of. So, okay, I see something pop in the chat, so let me pull that up. If you submit your OSU SUP app before December 15th, will you receive the SUP app when you submit or still around the 15th? Okay, Claudia, I'm not quite understanding. So if you submit your OSU application before December 15th, I think maybe you are referring to the SIDCAS application. Will you receive the supplemental application when you submit or still around the 15th? I think it is all about when your SIDCAS application hits that complete or verified status. Once it hits that, you'll get the link. And that can be before the December 15th, it could be after, just as long as you've completed both the SIDCAS application by December 15th and the OSU SUP app by January 15th. I hope that answered your question. Could you give me a little yes or no in the chat? Thank you, Claudia. Maggie asked, does it make a difference to the admission board how early or late you apply? Absolutely not. So you can wait until December 15th. I don't recommend it because the stress level's there. But whether or not your application is complete today versus early December, no, because we do not start reviewing applications until after December 15th. So we want all the applications in and then we assign them to our faculty. So no, don't feel like you have to rush because you're gonna get an early review. That might happen at other universities. We don't do that. So great questions. Thank you. All right, I'm keeping my chat open. So if you guys have more questions, pop them in there and I'll pause and answer. All right, so I think I've sort of beat this horse to death, so we'll move on. And that's not a very nice metaphor, is it? Okay, so preparing your applications. So what about courses and transcripts? So CIDCAS is pretty strict about this. So all college level coursework has to be reported. And so what can happen is you think, well, you know, I transferred that credit over to OSU, so it shows up as transfer credit. But if you don't submit the actual transcript from the other, so say you took some courses at Columbus State City College or community college, and you transferred those to OSU, and so you've submitted your official OSU transcript to CIDCAS, but you didn't submit Columbus State. There again, that is a problem, right? They want official transcripts from every institution that you received college credit for. So they see that as a transfer credit, they're going to look for the other transcript. So be sure that, if you've only done your coursework at Ohio State, you're golden. That's all you need to do. But if we see this in many, many applicants. They've done coursework at different institutions, starting at a community college or transferring from one campus to a different campus. And there's absolutely no problem with that, just as long as that you make sure you request those transcripts and have them sent to CIDCAS, okay? Not to OSU, to CIDCAS. But if you don't have all those courses reported and you don't have all those transcripts submitted to CIDCAS, your application goes unreviewed. So that's one thing you don't want to have happen after all that time and effort that you've put in. So I think I have another slide on this. Yeah, transcripts. My advice to all of you here, order those official transcripts early and submit them as early as possible. So you're not worrying about, is that transcript going to arrive by December 15th, right? And just take that stress off your plate and order those transcripts. So you see in the orange box, official transcripts from all college level coursework that must be received by CIDCAS. Do not send them to OSU. We don't want your official transcripts. Everything is managed through CIDCAS. OSU advising reports, not acceptable. It's not an official transcript. When should I submit my transcripts? They're down at the bottom. Now. Do it now. Just go ahead and get that off the plate. You don't want to be waiting on the registrar's office. I think it's the registrar who takes care of transcripts. What about fall? Wait, I see something pop into the chat. Would you recommend utilizing the professional transcript entry that is offered on SIDCast? I wondered if I'd get this question. So I I think that's a highly individualized. Oh, Maria says, I believe former students suggested not to. I think, well, you have to pay for it, so it's an extra fee. So, cost is definitely an issue. I think you guys are all smart. You're all capable. I think you can do it yourself. I think if, um, you know, I personally don't have a strong opinion either way, Grace. I think Maria has some insight that former students have suggested not to.
So
Um,
we had a meeting in the spring with some of our seniors that had just gone through the process, and they explained that you still have to double check everything, and then if there's errors, you have to correct them. So it sounded like it made the most sense to just manually do it. But again, like Dr. Rup is saying, it's kind of a personalized preference, but that was my takeaway on that.
Yeah, I think if you want to pay someone to get all that entered in for you, great. That's one less thing you're worrying about. However, I think what Maria just said is so important. You need to go back and double check their work because it's your responsibility to ensure that your information on your application is correct. So, yeah, there you go. Okay, so you guys are working on your applications this fall semester. You're also taking courses, right? So, if you're entering in courses, we want to see all courses that you have taken, that you're currently taking, or you plan to take. Super important that second bullet point in the gray box. If the course is in progress or planned, enter that. So, so important. So if you have friends that are not on this Zoom, please let them know that, right? So if you're sending in transcripts now, you're like, well, Dr. Roop said I need in progress and planned. If I send in my transcripts now, I won't have fall grades or autumn semester grades. True. That's okay because once your application is submitted and complete, you can do an academic update. So there's a link there. We'll send out these slides. You guys can have these slides. There's a link to SIDCast where you can update your application with your fall grades after the application is complete. We also want to see what you're planning to take for spring semester. This is really important when we're evaluating your application to determine if you've completed all the prerequisite coursework. Because students who have not completed prerequisite coursework will get a conditional offer of admission. And once you've completed that coursework, the prerequisites, then that conditional status will be removed. So it really helps us when we're evaluating your application to see what you've planned and what you're currently taking. So hopefully that makes sense. GPA calculations, this is something that I think you guys need to understand and know that SIDCAS does its own calculation of your GPA. So your GPA that you see on your advising report or on your transcript from OSU may not be the exact GPA that SIDCAS reports to us. So what happens is that SIDCAS will calculate a GPA based on all courses from all institutions attended. So I see this a lot where sometimes students will report on their resume or in their personal statement that they have, I just spit, sorry, an X GPA. So, I have a 3.7 GPA, but then SIDCAS calculates it and it's a 3.6 or a 3.5. It might be a little bit different either way. And that's because if you've attended Columbus City or if you've Columbus and Ohio, not Columbus City, Columbus State, sorry for anyone who's gone to Columbus State. Columbus State or Ohio and Ohio State. Ah, they're going to combine those GPAs, right? So that's just something for you to remember that that can happen. So like maybe you did some early work and maybe your grades weren't so great, but then you got to Ohio State and you knocked it out of the park and you're like, well, now I have a 3.8 at Ohio State. That's a good, strong GPA. But what happens is that those coursework from the other work gets incorporated. And so your overall GPA might look different in SIDCAS than what you expect it to. So just keep that in mind. I think sometimes that can come as a surprise to students, especially when you think, I thought my GPA was was better than what SIDCAS is reporting. So that's the way that works. SU courses, satisfactory, unsatisfactory is they're like pass fail courses. Those non-graded credits are not included. So when you enter the course into your transcripts section of SIDCAS, those aren't calculated into your GPA because they don't come with those points like you would normally expect. If you withdrew from a course, I did that when I was an undergrad. If you have a W on your transcript, does not get included in your GPA, but maybe you withdrew and there's a grade attached because maybe you withdrew late in the semester. That will get incorporated. So a WF, which is a fail, is included as an E, or if it's a WE, that does get included into the GPA. So important to note. So you're not surprised by that. Um, okay, so Ben asks if you have only gone to OSU, would SIDCAS GPA match your OSU GPA or could it still be different? It should match, honestly. It should match almost exactly because um, I'm not going to say that with 100% certainty because if you say you've gone to OSU only. It's the only institution, and you've only taken, so every course you've taken, you've only taken once, then yes, your SIDCAS and OSU GPA should match, should be almost identical. However, if, say, you have only gone to OSU, but maybe one of your courses you got a C, and you're like, I want to retake that because I know I can do better, both of those grades get counted, right? OSU will average those two grades into your cumulative GPA. SIDCAS handles that a little differently. So that is a situation if you've retaken a course where the GPA might be slightly different. So I wish I could say with absolute certainty that would be absolutely the same, but there's some nuance there. There's always exceptions to those rules. So hopefully that makes sense, Ben. Okay, there it is, repeated classes in your GPA. So thanks for leading me into that, Ben. Repeated courses must be reported, and if it's repeated at the same institution, or let me say that a different way, repeated courses must be reported. So I got a course and I didn't like my grade. I wanted to take it again because I knew I could do better. Say I got a C the first time around, and the second time around I got an A. OSU averages those to a B. That's how it gets calculated into your OSU GPA. SIDCAS, if I took that course and got a C, took that course again and got an A, it'll average out probably the same way, but you have to report it. So credit hours and grades for all repeated courses must be entered. And all of those are included in the SIDCAS GPA calculation. So again, that's where you might see some differences. Oh, supplemental application. I will tell you that when we first started using the SIDCAS system, I'm like, why do we have a supplemental application? We don't need that. But this is OSU grad and professional admissions. This is their requirement. It's not a departmental requirement. So I'm just going to throw them under the bus a little bit with that one. But nonetheless, it is something that you have to do. So how can I access that? The only way you can access that is after the SIDCAS application is complete. I already mentioned that. Then that will trigger an email to you with a link to complete this next application. When will you receive it? After your SIDCAS application reaches verified, and that verified status only happens when your application is complete. Again, when's the deadline? January 15th. So there you go. What if you haven't received the SUP app email from OSU by January 1st? Check your SIDCAS application. And if you are certain it's verified and complete, then that's something that we need to manage on our end. Like, hey, grad and professional admissions, this student didn't get their SUP app. Remember, we're right in the middle of the winter holidays, right? So people are taking time off. It's in between autumn and spring semesters. So, glitches can happen. We don't want them to, but if you guys are staying on top of your application status and SIDCAS and you still haven't received that SUP app, then we will intervene and figure out what happened. Fees and fee waivers. So SIDCAS, you want to go directly to them on this, but you probably already know this, but it's $150 for the very first application that you complete, and then $60 for each additional application. So if you're applying to Ohio State, and then maybe you're applying to two other schools, it's 150 for the first and 60 each for the next two. So that is the cost of applying through SIDCAS. They do have a fee assistance program or a fee waiver program, but that is first come, first serve. So if that's something you're interested in or feel you're eligible for, it is income based or service based. So if you're a McNair scholar or you fall into a low income bracket, then those are the qualifications. But more information, you can find more information on that on the SIDCAS website. And importantly, it only covers that initial 150. If you're applying to multiple programs, you still have to cover the $60 for the additional. But that is something that maybe you weren't aware of and you would qualify for. So I encourage you to explore that opportunity. The OSU supplemental application is $60, an additional $60, and then for international applicants, it's $70. Um, there are fee waivers available as well. There's more information on the graduate and professional admissions website. And again, these are for eligible applicants. So McNair scholars, economically disadvantaged individuals. SROP stands for Summer Research Opportunity Program. It's similar to the McNair Scholar Program. If you fit into any of those categories, it's likely that you would be eligible for a fee waiver. So you can reach out to graduate and professional admissions to get more information or ask them or see how to about applying for one of those fee waivers. We do not manage those fee waivers either for SIDCAS or for OSU supplemental application. So that's up to you to figure out. And I guess figure out isn't the right word. It's up to you to apply for them through those mechanisms. So hopefully that made sense. Okay. So your SIDCAS application is like those buckets, right? So your demographic information, your transcripts, all your grades, and then your supporting information. And so your supporting information includes your evaluations, is how they refer to it. That's essentially the 3 letters of recommendation. That's covered in another session with Dr. Bielefeld, so I'm not going to really talk about it. But the other things they want you to fill out are all those supporting information that allow us to make that holistic evaluation of you, the candidate, the applicant. So we're looking at all these experiences. So have you completed clinical observation hours? So that's captured in the guided clinical experiences. There are some universities that require that you have those 25 observation hours completed before you start their program. So that's important information for us and for other institutions. We don't require that you have all 25 hours because we could get that for you once you start our graduate programs. But I do know that there are some programs that do require that. So pay attention when you're looking at other programs other than OSU, what their requirements are for when prerequisite courses are complete and when clinical observation hours are complete. You can include any conferences that you've attended. Those are continuing education opportunities. Maybe you've had the opportunity to go to a state conference like the OSHLA, the Ohio Speech Language Hearing Association, or ASHA. I forget where ASHA, I think ASHA is going to be in Washington, D.C. this fall. Or audiology, if you're interested in audiology, maybe you've been to the Ohio Audiology Conference or the American Academy of Audiology, any of the, and it doesn't have to be just speech and hearing. Maybe you're not a speech and hearing major. Maybe you are a psychology major and you've done something like that. That's a place where you can demonstrate that you've done some continuing education. Experiences are really important for us to get a sense of who you are. So, have you worked? We see a lot of students who work multiple jobs. What extracurricular activities have you been involved in? And this is where you can really describe those experiences. Your leadership experience. Maybe you are on the leadership board for NISLA or another organization on campus. Have you been involved in research? Are you working on a project with a faculty member? And it doesn't have to be in speech and hearing science. Have you done any volunteer work? And when you enter those in, be sure to give us a nice description of what that entails. Not super long. Don't write a thesis, but those really help us to get to know you as a person through this application process. And then what are your achievements? Have you received any scholarships, any awards, any honors? Have you done any presentations? Students who have done research theses might present at the Denman Undergraduate Research Forum. Maybe you've been in a lab where you've been on a publication. That's would be super cool to see. And this doesn't have to be super extensive, but you know, tell us who you are. This is your opportunity, besides the personal statement, to really show what you've been doing the last 4 years of your undergraduate career, or I guess 3.5 years, or however long it's taken you. My advice in this section, don't make it, don't try and fill it just to fill it. Make sure that these are things that you've done and that are meaningful. But don't leave it blank. I've seen that happen a couple of times, and it's always a little surprising when you're reviewing applications and you get to that section and it's just blank. And I'm like, oh goodness, that's a lost or missed opportunity. So I'm sorry, I just see that Isabella has asked, do all schools accept the observation hours we get in the 3360 course through Master Clinician Network? As far as I'm aware, the answer to that is yes. We wouldn't be administering that course or have that course designed that way if they weren't accepted at other schools. So those hours are signed off on by an ASHA certified clinician. So you should be good to go. Okay. Um, okay, before I get to frequently asked questions, I've mentioned the demographic portion. That's probably like the easiest thing for you to complete. So part of demographic information that you complete through SIDCAS includes race and ethnicity information. You should know that that information is redacted from your application when we're reviewing all applications, and that's part of the fairly recent U.S. Supreme Court decision that race and ethnicity can't be used in college admissions. And so you are completing that information through your application, but we do not see it. The only time we see it is after we have offered you admission and after you have accepted our admission. So once we have our class defined, then we get to see some of that demographic information because then we do have to report that to our accrediting body, but it is not part of our admissions decisions. Um, so someone had asked, do we need any observation hours before we apply? It's the hours, not the course, that's important. Oh, wait. Would we need to log our own hours from that course or does the transcript hours? No, you have to log those hours and you need it signed. There's like a form that your instructor should have given you that has their signature and their C's on it. And it is the hours, not the course. Maria is absolutely correct. You need hours of the program, have them listed as part of their admissions requirements. Yeah. So whatever university you're applying to, you should be looking at their admissions requirements on their website to know whether or not the hours are required before you apply, before you start, or not. Does the aphasia initiative also count as clinical observation hours? I believe so. Um, I would think so. Um, if you log them and have Professor Brello or Ms. Sheeler sign them. Yeah, they have to be signed to count. So I'm sure they'll tell you all that. That should be part of the course. Yeah, yeah. Cool. Okay. Marley, for the supporting information, there is a place for observations and then another spot for experience shadowing. What is the difference there? Honestly, I don't really see a difference other than maybe you are getting clinical observation hours to fulfill that requirement. Um, and then shadowing could be like maybe you are hanging out with that speech pathologist or audiologist for like a semester. Maybe you're going one day a week, every week, shadowing what they're doing. But to be perfectly honest, I don't see the difference between those. And so I don't know that should it be reported in both places or just one? I would report it in just one. Um, especially if it's the same, right? Like if you are shadowing slash observing someone, it doesn't make sense to report it in both. So I would just choose one and go with it, to be quite honest. And it's not gonna, whether it's in the shadowing section or if it's in the observation section, I think actually I'm gonna say put it in the observation before shadowing because, that's where we're trying to figure out if you've had those hours. That would be my personal advice. But, is that gonna make or break your application? No. Whether you put it shadowing or in the observation bucket, it's just the fact that you did it is more important. So we'll get that one way or the other. Okay, how are we doing? 7:43. Wow, I'm really talking your ear off, aren't I? Okay, frequently asked questions. So you're putting in your courses and you're entering them yourselves. What if the subject of a course doesn't exactly line up with the topics that are in SIDCAS? Well, here's the answer from SIDCAS. Select the course subject. If you're unsure, make your best guess. And there's a couple of links that I put in here. And again, we'll share these slides with you to SIDCAS. One is where I got this quote from. And then the other is more information on how to select your course subjects. So, sometimes it's not going to match perfectly, and that's totally okay. This is what I see on your application, this green table over here. So this is how courses get broken down into biological and life sciences, etc. So, if it's in that general bucket, it's going to get calculated in there. So if it doesn't match exactly, it's okay. It's okay. Just take your best guess. And if you're still just like, I can't find a course subject or topic that matches what I took, reach out to SIDCAS and they'll help you with that. They have a really great help team to help you with that. So, don't let that stymie you. What if I've completed more than one minor? I've gotten this question quite a bit. You know, you may be a speech and hearing major and have done a minor in disability studies and something else. I'm not sure. But if you've completed more than one, kudos, good on you. But SIDCAS doesn't really have a mechanism for you to list multiple minors. That's okay. You can mention that in your personal statement. You can talk about your minors and why you chose to do those minors and why that led you to speech and hearing science or to speech pathology or audiology. You can help build that into your narrative of who you are. You can also list that in your supporting information section. So there's multiple ways in which you can demonstrate that you have multiple minors if that's the case. What about AP courses or advanced placement courses? Do I need to submit a transcript? So no, you just when you're entering your course into SIDCAS, and if you received AP credit, you are going to indicate that in SIDCAS. I believe there's a drop-down menu where if you received AP credit, you can click yes and then continue, and then that will show up and it will agree with your transcript. So there you go. Oh, this came up this last year. Will someone from OSU Speech and Hearing review and give feedback on your application before you submit it? So the answer, I'm sorry, is no. We are unable to provide individual application reviews prior to submission. So my advice, if any of you are just like, I really want someone to look this over before I hit submit, I understand and I completely get that. You want to make sure everything is correct and looks good. You're presenting yourself through this application. I get it. My advice is ask a friend or a family member to review your application with you before you submit it. But again, we get close to 400 applications, and that's just something we simply cannot do. So the answer to that question is no. Okay. Other questions? Thank you for asking questions along the way. Again, just some general advice. Read the instructions thoroughly. We have spent a lot of time curating our website to ensure that we're giving you really good, accurate information. SIDCast just has extensive help pages, and you can reach out to them and get a person directly, and they're very, very helpful. So if you're feeling unsure, those are really the two best places to start. And then if you're just like, I still don't get it, I can't figure it out, that's when you can email your department contacts and we can help you. Okay, other questions? Sort of reached the end, I think. Okay, Claudia, do you happen to know if most schools send supplemental applications after the SIDCAS? I think they do, honestly. I think this is part of getting into the graduate and professional admissions system as an applicant. And so I believe that's the case. I wouldn't be able to tell you like for sure every school whether they do or don't, but I believe most institutions are going to have their own individual application. You're welcome. Just pause here for any other questions. I think my face is really warm. It looks really red on camera. When logging hours, I know there are two templates on OSU's website. Which one is best to use? Oh, good gracious. Alexis, I honestly don't know, but I will get back to you. Um, I didn't know there was two templates. One is a log. There you go. So one and one is for the signatures. Thank you, Maria. That was so helpful. So helpful. So you would use both. There you go. They're not, if we have more than one log sheet, can we upload both or do they only accept one? Ooh, I would imagine you upload both. So Elizabeth, the question, are you talking about uploading them to SIDCAS? I'm not sure you upload them to SIDCAS. Like if we shadowed a few therapists. Okay. Wait, Alexis had it. So for each video watched, we should be filling out the signature sheet and getting signed by. So that would be a question for your course instructor. I'm not exactly sure. Is it Dr. Hoagland who's teaching that course now? Did you guys have Dr. Hoagland for that course? Yes. So that would be a question that Alexis, I'm going to refer you directly to Dr. Hoagland. That should have been, I'm sure that was part of that course, but she would be able to help you with that. Yeah. So as Maria put into the chat, these are questions for your 3360 instructor. Dr. Hoagland is great, and I'm sure she'd be happy to help you with that. Okay, as you guys think about asking questions and reaching out to faculty, reaching out to me, to Maria, to Miss Wendell, who's our grad studies coordinator, who can help you with these things too. This is just a note about email etiquette, and I'm confident that all of you have good email etiquette. But it's just a reminder that when you're making inquiries to any of faculty or staff in the department, be sure that you take just that extra minute to ensure that your email is written professionally and politely, using appropriate titles. I've been called "Hey Christina" in emails in the past, and that's not a good way to start off an interaction. So be sure that you know who you're reaching out to and you use an appropriate title. It's the best foot forward. And be sure to proofread your message before sending it. So we want to give you all a lot of encouragement and grace. This is a can be confusing. There's a lot of little things that you have to remember and to do, and it is stressful applying to graduate school. Completely understand. We're happy to answer any and all of your questions, which is why we're doing these sessions for you. But again, I want you to remember that we have other resources for you. So our application instructions on the OSU speech and hearing website and SIDCAS. So Maggie has asked, does it make a difference to admissions where observation hours come from? No, not at all. That as long as they're done, the programs would specify if so. Yeah, thanks, Maria. I'm hazarding a guess. I'm just going to put it out there. I don't think they do, but this is where you'd want to look at their individual websites. Um, yeah, well, I guess I would say that they have to come from an ASHA certified clinician. So there you go. Let me clarify. It's 25 hours. Yes, that's the minimum number that you need. That's an ASHA requirement, and they have to be supervised by, or the observation has to be with an ASHA clinically certified clinician. So the C's, the Certificate of Clinical Competence, or the CCC, SLP, or audiology. So that would be the requirement in terms of where they come from, what clinic or hospital or whatever. I don't think that that is really the issue. It's more that they've been signed by someone who has their C's. Okay. Yep. So remember, receive 350 to 400 applications every year. So our ability to answer individual questions can be limited, especially when the information is already out there. So if you get a response that's like, hey, here's the link, please go back. Don't take that personally. That isn't like we're trying to push you off or ignore you. It's just, if you've exhausted all your resources, say that in your email. I've been on the website and I've been on SIDCAS and I still have this other question. Then, yeah, we're ready to dive in and help you. I looked today and applications in progress are already close to 300. So we're starting off strong already. So there you go. Okay. Final, I think this is it. Give yourself plenty of time. You guys are here, you're doing these sessions, so you're already ahead of the game. This is a link to SIDCAS's suggested application timeline. You can study that. Please, 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 I beg all of you. I'm not above begging. Monitor your email, monitor your application status. Um, I've been told that I'm a dinosaur because I still use email as my main communication, but that's how we communicate with students is through email. I want to do as we want to do as much to meet you where you are as students, but this is one area in which we have to meet each other. We have to meet each other through electronic communication, and that is email. So if something's missing and Sarah Wendell has reached out to you or she's reached out to you through SIDCAS, if she's put in a message and you haven't read it, there's nothing we can do about that, right? And that might be the difference between your application being reviewed and not being reviewed. So, join the old people like me and monitor your email. Um, your letters of recommendation, they can be submitted the day of. There's no lag or delay, but I would recommend that you ask your professors to submit your letters by, I would say maybe by December 10th is a good deadline. You can say the deadline is the 15th, but I'd appreciate it if you can submit by the 10th. Remember, you know, professors and faculty members are teaching, they're grading, they're writing multiple letters of recommendation. So if they don't do it right away, it doesn't mean that they're not going to get to it. I'm sure Dr. Bielefeld will talk more about that next week. And then again, monitor your application status so it hits that verified and complete status by the 15th. I think, yeah, the other thing, just breathe, right? Take a deep breath. We just had a white coat ceremony for our audiology graduate students, and we had a keynote speaker who's a former undergrad from OSU, and he's a lieutenant commander in the Navy now, and he talked about stress and relieving stress and managing stress. And as I said, we know that this is a stressful process for everybody, but just take a moment and just take a deep breath. It helps reduce that stress. So, my advice to you. Okay, one last slide. Here is my contact information. Again, I'm Dr. Christina Roup, Chair of the Graduate Studies Committee. There is my email address, roup.2. Undergraduate Studies Chair is Dr. Allison Bean.61. So if you want to chat or if you have some questions that you haven't been able to answer, Miss Wendell, I'm sure you have her contact information, but here's ours as well. Uh, so 7:58, I managed to go an entire hour. Thank you everybody so much for hanging in with me, and I hope you found this session useful. I wish you all the best as you take on this journey of applying to graduate schools. We're hoping that you will apply to Ohio State. We love to get applications from our own students. So let me know if you have any questions. You can throw some in the chat if you're still around. Otherwise, we're coming to an end, or we've come to an end. You guys are welcome. Thanks for joining us.